anyone.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this, look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on this Friday as we close out the week. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be back with you here on our show, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern. We'll cover a lot on today's show, including a very big game in the National Hockey League tonight. It is Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals, a series that looked like it could be a sweep. Now has the Edmonton Oilers potentially in a good spot, but they must win this game tonight. We will discuss that and get a preview from Joe Madden. Also, a legend in the broadcasting industry, of course, doing radio for the New York Yankees for decades, Suzyn Waldman will be with us. We'll talk about what has gone right for the New York Yankees this season. Naturally, we'll have a guest contributor from Legal Sports Report today as Jim Gazzale, and of course, we'll talk some NBA with Matt Lutovsky. Those are just some of the things that we're covering on this show for you here on this Friday, so make sure you stick with us for the full hour, and we'll get to everything for you here, including the latest in the National Basketball Association coaching search, which officially comes to a close in Los Angeles. As it turns out, J.J. Redick is going to be the guy to lead the Lakers into the future. He ends up getting hired yesterday, courtesy of ESPN. 15 years in the NBA, and naturally, as we know by now, was not the first choice to coach the team, but ends up getting the job. He was sold, was the general manager, Rob Pelinka, on everything going on with his career. And naturally, this is just a huge win for the Los Angeles Lakers if this ends up turning out to go well for them. Meanwhile, yesterday at Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama, the St. Louis Cardinals beat the New York Giants by a final of 6-5, a very emotional ceremony honoring Willie Mays. Game sort of took a back seat with all the legends that were there, too, honoring the Negro Leagues, Ken Griffey Jr. and Barry Bonds and David Ortiz and so many other celebrities there. Cardinals end up winning this game by a final of 6-5. And Brendan Donovan from Alabama with the big shot in this game. Oliver Marmol talked about the Cardinals playing much better and naturally getting the win in that historical field.
Guys have been playing well. We've been playing a lot of close ball games, and that's meaningful. It's going to pay off down the road when you're playing so many 1-2 run ball games. But we're starting to swing the bats a lot better. That's been the ups and downs of our season, has been the offense. Pitching has done a nice job to this point. The bullpen's been really good, but moving forward, I think our offense is in a much better spot and more consistent. You get Newbar and Contreras back here soon, and it definitely changes the game. Perspective. It was fun. Not that many, like the stadium's small, but it felt like the feeling of it was pretty cool. The pre-game ceremonies were incredible. During that time, I mean, I got emotional just standing there, knowing where you're standing and just the overall feel of the tribute to Willie Mays, and just like, man, the impact he had on people that he met, but also people that he never met. And that's when you know you've done it right, when you can have that type of influence. So the ceremonies were incredible. They really were. Yeah.
Really good job by Major League Baseball, I thought, especially with everything happening before the game, and the game itself was very well played. Meanwhile, a not well played game yesterday by the New York Yankees. First time it feels like all season they had a starting pitcher get blown up. Luis Gil came back down to earth after a fantastic couple of months here in Major League Baseball. Let's be honest, not everybody can pitch great every time out. 17 runs, though, that's a lot. Baltimore put up a 17 spot, took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees. Orioles are far from done right now. Looks like they're right in this thing, and this could go right down to the final week or even maybe the final day. Who knows, of the Major League Baseball season. Aaron Judge, though, was back in the lineup after getting hit by a pitch on his hand, said he felt pretty good and knows that the Orioles are formidable.
Felt good. You know, there's still some swelling, some soreness and stuff like that, especially on foul balls. But if you square it up, it feels pretty good.
Reassurance for you when you get a piece of that one and you're able to still drive the ball?
Yeah, definitely. Got a good pitch to hit, and I was trying to, you know, do something out there, put the ball in play, and lucky was able to get over the fence. They're a good ball club. You know, we saw that last year. You know, they got some great young players. You know, play hard, play fast. You know, some great arms, starting pitching and bullpen, and you know, it's fun competing against those guys. You know, they bring it every single day, and you know, even like today, you know, came out swinging early on, and you know, had some early success against Hill, and you know, we really couldn't answer back after that. But you know, it's a fun team to compete against. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like you said, we got a half game on them, and it's going to be back and forth all the way till the end of September. That's for sure. And you know, I think we're looking forward to, you know, having those battles back and forth. But you know, when it really ultimately comes down to us just taking care of ourselves, you know, we go out there and play the baseball that we're supposed to. You know, clean it up on defense a little bit, clean it up on certain things, and you know, we'll take care of it and be where we want to be.
Meanwhile, the Yankees pitching has been fantastic, even without Garrett Cole, who just returned this week after being on the injured list. But it was not a fantastic day for the first time this season for starting pitcher Luis Gil, who got beat up by the Orioles, but said it's just one of those days.
Luis, were you at all taken aback at how aggressive the Orioles were in this one?
Me sorprendió un poco, entendiendo la alineación que te iba a enfrentar, de lo agresivos que fueron hoy en día, swingueando.
Entendiendo que es una alineación buena, sabe que tiene los Orioles, pero yo traté de ejecutar todo mi picheo. Todos somos humanos, hay días buenos, hay días malos, pero yo sé que habrá más días mejores. Antemano le pido una disculpa a mi equipo, tú sabes, pero habrá un día mejores y yo confío en mí y en mi equipo. Yo sé que nosotros vamos a dar lo mejor de ahora en adelante.
I mean, they have a really good lineup, you know, and there's good days and bad days out there. You know, and today definitely not my best. You know, I felt like I let the team down today, but you know, we definitely have more games ahead of us. You know, and I'm sure that we're going to be able to turn the page on this one and improve. You know, I believe in myself, and I definitely believe in my teammates.
All right, well, Luis Gil will take the mound next week, hoping for better results. Meanwhile, the Yankees are hoping for an injury result that's positive from Gleyber Torres, who left the game yesterday in the 5th inning with some tightness in his right groin. DJ LeMahieu played third from first, and Ben Rice had to enter the game. Meanwhile, Shohei Ohtani, another home run. 6 home runs in his last 10 games. He's the new leader in the National League. Surprise, surprise. Also, Clayton Kershaw took another step in his recovery. 3 innings in his first rehab start. He's hoping to return at some point later this month or next month and pitch the second half of the season. We do have one very fun game, I think, going on this afternoon, 2:20 Eastern. A good pitching matchup also. Shoto Imanaga pitches for the Chicago Cubs. Friendly confines at Wrigley Field. They'll take on the New York Mets. All right, now let's get to the NBA. Of course, it is the offseason, but some moves now coming down the pipe in terms of some trades and free agent signings. There was a small trade yesterday. Alex Caruso goes to the Thunder for Josh Giddey. Caruso was in the final year of his deal. Thunder make the trade, hoping Caruso could be an integral player for the long-term. Giddey goes over to Chicago. Meanwhile, Malik Monk, he's a free agent. Looks like he's going to sign a 4-year, $78 million deal to return to the Sacramento Kings. Had a great season last year. Also was the NBA's sixth-man runner-up. So Malik Monk looks like he is going back to Sacramento. Angel Reese having a nice rookie season, sets the WNBA rookie record with a 7th consecutive double-double. They beat the Chicago Sky yesterday, 83-72. She had 16 points, 18 rebounds for the Sky. They had previously lost 4 games in a row. Also tonight in the WNBA, Caitlin Clark and the Fever taking on the Atlanta Dream. Fever minus 2.5 there. All right, now it is all on the line tonight in the Stanley Cup Finals. Can the Florida Panthers finally close this thing out? They lead the series 3-2. Oilers are a slight favorite in tonight's game. The New England Patriots have re-signed Ramondre Stevenson to a contract extension, 4 years, $36 million for the running back. Also, Ryan Garcia has been suspended, the boxer, 1 year by the New York State Athletic Commission. His win over Devin Haney is now a no contest. He also has to forfeit $1 million to Golden Boy Promotions. And finally, over in tennis, Carlos Alcaraz has agreed to a new 10-year deal with Nike worth up to $200 million. According to Revelo, 21-year-old will get his own cool Nike logo. All right, coming up next here on the show, we got Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News, JJ Redick, the new coach of the Lakers. How about this trade in the NBA? And also, the gift that keeps on giving, Bronny James talk once again here on NewsWire. I'll be very thankful when this draft is over. Be right back here on NewsWire. Don't go away.
Crazy how many teams had a chance to win. The Ripper GC went from 9 back to leading by 2 to the near the cellar again late in the day. It was so volatile, counting 4 scores. It was pretty nuts, but you know, the cliques have been cellar dwellers for basically 2.5 seasons, and they come out victorious today. That's awesome.
Be the summer of the cliques, definitely. So, like I said, there's definitely more to come from us.
It was a magnificent ball striking performance.
Yeah, you know, I got to speak to someone in his camp before he teed off this morning, and they said to me that he is finally feeling extremely comfortable out here. He's not thinking about any swing thought. He's going out there, he's swinging so freely, and it certainly showed today. The way he drove the ball, the way he hit his irons, and even in his putting as well.
Yeah, and lives in Texas, went to school in Texas. His tour win on the PGA Tour was here in Houston, which is Texas, and now his first live win, Texas.
Honestly, it was just a matter of playing solid coming down the stretch. I think there was a switch there on 15 that I made birdie, he made bogey, and I just knew that I had to power in pretty much, and it was mine. The 18 I made bogey, but it worked. He played unbelievable, and he put pressure all the way to the end, and it was a good battle. I love playing here. Obviously, Texas treats me well. It's my adopted home state, so I'm just happy to get it done again in Houston.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We got Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News. We'll dive into the latest in the NBA. We have the draft coming up next week and some free agent signings and some trades to discuss. Matt, happy Friday. Thanks for coming on the show. Yesterday, we found out the Lakers have hired their new head coach. It is JJ Redick. Not much experience in terms of coaching, a lot of experience, of course, in the NBA. and also in media, which is not unprecedented at this stage of the game. We've seen this happen a lot in sports. You look good on TV. You look like you know what you're talking about. Sometimes you get a job. Indeed, that appears to be the case. Matt, I guess the question for you is this a rebuild job for JJ Redick in Los Angeles, or are they going to be built to win? Is he going to have LeBron James next year?
Well, I think Los Angeles always thinks it's built to win. Obviously, they went through a rebuild relatively recently, but they didn't really rebuild. They just acquired a bunch of superstars. So that's the nice thing about being the Los Angeles Lakers. So even if they do rebuild, I don't know how long it'll last, but I mean, I would expect LeBron to be back. Obviously, he became very fast friends with JJ Redick in the past year. And I think no matter what, they'll have Anthony Davis. So you still have a superstar on the roster. I would think this is a sign that there's a good chance LeBron comes back and this team will be loaded for bear again. For whatever that is, I mean, obviously they're veterans of the play-in game right now, which I don't think is where they want to be. But the West is absolutely loaded. And so when you look at other coaches recently, anyway, who've kind of gone, I know Redick took a year in between, but have gone quickly from their playing days to the coaching booth and at a relatively young age. I think I look at Steve Nash, I look at Jason Kidd, and for whatever reason, I think people remember these guys as sort of being bust. They didn't last that long at their first job, which is both with the Nets, but they were both over 500. They both actually did pretty well. Now, that was in a weaker East, and that was going into very veteran teams that had high expectations. Well, I think Redick will be in the same situation if LeBron comes back. So I think they can be decent. But at the same time, I think the potential for disaster here is high. And I think I said this before on this show. It's one of those hires that after the season, no matter what happens, people will claim it was obvious. If they have a horrible year, people are going to say, well, of course they had a horrible year. They hired a 37-year-old, however old Redick is. And then if they do well, people say, well, yeah, of course. JJ Redick's a bright young mind. He knows basketball. He's innovative. That's what you need instead of hiring all these retreads that coaches always do. So it's going to be an interesting one. I'm excited to see how this one plays out. If I had to give my bet on this, I don't think it'll go particularly well, but I think it'll kind of go with how it's been for the Lakers the last couple of years. If LeBron's back, they'll get into the play-in and won't do that well. I know 2 years ago they made the conference finals, and that was a very good year for them, but I think it'll be more along the lines of this year because as great as LeBron is, as legendary as he is, he's only getting older, like we all are. And so I just think eventually the play is going to diminish even more.
Yeah, and look, that's a fair assessment. I think you're right. I think both sides will say it worked or it didn't work and just call a victory at that point. But I don't know that it matters to Redick after Monty Williams just got $65 million not to coach. If I'm Redick, just take that money. Whatever happens, happens, and in the end, you're going to be just fine. Malik Monk, former Laker, is getting paid 4 years, $78 million reportedly to go back to the Sacramento Kings. This is a nice story. You don't have to be a superstar necessarily, Matt, in the NBA. You just have to keep grinding it out. And for every one of these stories we see in the league where a potentially highly drafted player or highly thought of player doesn't work out, there's a story like Malik Monk who just kept persevering and now is very wealthy. $78 million, good deal for him.
Yeah, very wealthy and also a very key contributor to a good team. And, he's one of these six men in that Jamal Crawford, Lou Williams, ilk that is a big producer for his team, even though it's technically off the bench. He's a key component. And he's pretty much all offense, but you need that. There's teams that need that. You just need that guy to come in, be a spark plug off the bench, put in big points, and, have these spurts where you just go nuts and score, blink of an eye, you're scoring 13, 15 points. And he can do that. And he's a very skilled offensive player. So I think it makes sense. It seemed like he really fit in well in Sacramento. The fans loved him, and he had a great year where he, some people think he should have been sixth man of the year. It's very close between him and Naz Reid. So I think he's got a good chance to win that award at least one more time, if not multiple times.
Okay, well, let's spend 30 seconds to a minute on this one. Small trade in the NBA, Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey. Giddey, I think, overachieved at one point. Now he goes to Chicago. Caruso in the final year of his deal. Does this help either team a little bit more by getting these individual players, or just moving baggage along here? What do you think?
No, I think it's a fantastic trade for the Thunder. I mean, Giddey obviously had worked his way out of the rotation during the playoffs. I still think he's a very good young player. I mean, he's not even 22 yet, and he does a lot of things well. He actually shot a career-high three, career-high from the free throw line. So I wouldn't give up on him yet by any means. But you get a guy like Caruso, all-defensive player, shot over 40% from three on relatively decent volume last year, just a smart player, fits in perfectly. I mean, they got a chance next year. They already had one of the top defenses in the league. They got a chance next year to throw out, three all-defensive players, and SGA is fantastic too. I mean, maybe four. And Jalen Williams is no slouch either in their starting lineup. They still need some height. They still need some rebounding. But I just think that's a perfect trade for the Thunder.
All right, let's close it out here. Draft is next week. I think I've done this, Matt. You've talked about the NBA draft now for several days in a row. There has not been one conversation I've had about the top pick in the draft. It's all surrounding LeBron James' son, Bronny James. Any reason to believe that he's not going to LA? Could you convince me otherwise?
It's the most time you've talked about the draft about a second-round pick, right? But, it's tough to say. Only working out with two teams. It still seems like LA makes a lot of sense. That's where he's going to wind up. The agent, Rich Paul's like, no, we'll go anywhere. Teams don't need to work them out. But when you're only working out for two teams, one of which doesn't have a second-round pick, I don't know. Seems like you're going to LA.
I agree. Plus 100 on FanDuel. Thanks, Matt. Have a good weekend.
All right, thank you.
All right, coming up next, we got a preview of Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Joe Madden is in the house. Go away.
Crazy how many teams had a chance to win. The Ripper GC went from 9 back to leading by 2 to near the cellar again late in the day. It was so volatile, counting 4 scores. It was pretty nuts, but the cliques have been cellar dwellers for basically 2.5 seasons, and they come out victorious today. That's awesome.
It'll be the summer of the cliques, definitely. So, like I said, there's definitely more to come from us.
It was a magnificent ball striking performance.
Yeah, I got to speak to someone in his camp before he teed off this morning, and they said to me that he is finally feeling extremely comfortable out here. He's not thinking about any swing thought. He's going out there, he's swinging so freely, and it certainly showed today. The way he drove the ball, the way he hit his irons, and even in his putting as well.
Yeah, and lives in Texas, went to school in Texas. His tour win on the PGA Tour was here in Houston, which is Texas, and now his first live win, Texas.
Honestly, it was just a matter of playing solid coming down the stretch. I think there was a switch there on 15 that I made birdie, he made bogey, and I just knew that I had to power in pretty much, and it was mine. The 18 I made bogey, but it worked. He played unbelievable, and he put pressure all the way to the end, and it was a good battle. I love playing here. Obviously, Texas treats me well. It's my adopted home state, so I'm just happy to get it done again in Houston.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We're heading back to Canada tonight for Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals. And say it ain't so, Joe. Man, I hope Joe Madden doesn't pick the Edmonton Oilers tonight over the Florida Panthers. But they are favored tonight, minus 125 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. If Here's a preview.
We have Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals, and I tell you, the Stanley Cup Finals have not disappointed. Edmonton was down 3-0 in this series and have come back, winning Game 4 and Game 5. Now, can they win Game 6 tonight and push this to Game 7? Absolutely, this team has the ability with Connor McDavid really stepping up. I'm going to look at Connor McDavid for 2+ points in this game tonight. I also think Matthew Tkachuk of the Florida Panthers is someone you got to look at for his points tonight. I'm expecting this to be a higher scoring one, so I am riding the over 5.5. I'm also riding the overtime bet at plus 330. Now, we haven't seen the overtime come into play in this series yet, but last game was pretty close. And I think with these teams pulling those goaltenders early, we have every opportunity of going to overtime. So overtime at plus 330, over 5.5, Connor McDavid for 2+ points, and Matthew Tkachuk for 2+ points. I think these goaltenders have stellar nights, but at the end of the day, these superstars make an impact in this game. All the best, you guys, tonight, and back to you, Craig.
Thanks, Joe. A lot of nervousness, I think, for Florida Panthers fans tonight, as much as they know they can still come back home for Game 7. Not necessarily what you want to do after going up 3-0 in the series. All right, the WNBA draft came and went, and I think we all knew who would be the number 1 pick. It was Caitlin Clark, and she's been very good over the last couple of weeks. But, man, Angel Reese has been fantastic since coming to the WNBA, and she was not the first overall pick. Reese, with a huge game last night, including a double-double and 18 rebounds, talked about not going number 1 overall, not taking it personally, and the coaches having her back.
Like I said earlier, it was a blessing that I dropped to 7 with these amazing teammates and these amazing coaches. The confidence piece, being able to have a coach that came in and told me, like, don't worry about where you were drafted to, what number that you were dropped to. Like, she told me, like, believe in yourself, surprise yourself before you surprise others. I knew coming into the league what I was going to bring, and I don't really care about what outside things. I knew my game was going to translate just because I rebound and I play hard. I play hard all 40 minutes, and you can't teach that. You can't teach the dog mentality. You can't teach somebody that just wants to go hard for their teammates and their coaches every single day. So that's just my job within this team, to rebound. Scoring is going to come from me. I think I also have a lot more room for improvement. Obviously, I'm not where I want to be right now, but I am satisfied right now where I am and just continue to grow my game.
18 rebounds. That's a lot for any player in the WNBA. Congrats to her. She's having a great start to her rookie campaign. Meanwhile, there's a rookie in Los Angeles, a rookie coach. His name is JJ Redick. He was hired to be the next Lakers head coach. And Kevin Walsh, of course, has his own opinion as to whether or not Redick will succeed in his first year as head coach of LeBron James and company. And first up, a press conference to talk about that. Second up, the NBA draft. And then, of course, coaching the Lakers this upcoming season. Here's Kevin on the hire.
JJ Redick is a Laker, which you knew would have social media talking. Plenty of people, some podcasters now feeling like they may be able to become an NBA, NFL head coach. Apparently, J.J. Redick's podcast, people believe, weighs a little bit more into his credibility than his 14-year career in the NBA. I guess it's just people having some fun, but ultimately, I think the Lakers have made an exciting hire here, and certainly one that's going to help them keep LeBron James, which we know is a priority. Next step for this team, the draft, which, of course, SportsGrid will have you covered for. The questions continue. Will the Lakers be the team to draft Bronny James? They are favored to do so, but teams like the Raptors, Timberwolves, and Mavericks are entering the conversation. And could Bronny going somewhere else change the scenario? Only time will tell. Craig, back to you.
All right, thanks very much, Kevin. And naturally, the NBA is going to have their draft next week, where the Lakers will have an opportunity to make history by drafting Bronny James. But for the first time that I can remember, we're heading into an NBA draft where the discussion is all about a player potentially being drafted in the second round or drafted at all versus some of the top talent in the NBA. Sort of an interesting dynamic going on next week. All right, Jim Gazzale is up next with Legal Sports Report. We'll talk about everything going on with sports betting, including an update in Michigan, and also whether or not ESPN Bet will continue to stay afloat. Stay with us here on NewsWire. We're back right after this.
crazy how many teams had a chance to win. The Ripper GC went from 9 back to leading by 2 to near the cellar again late in the day. It was so volatile, counting 4 scores. It was pretty nuts, but you know, the cliques have been cellar dwellers for basically 2.5 seasons, and they come out victorious today. That's awesome.
It'll be the summer of the cliques, definitely. So, like I said, there's definitely more to come from us.
It was a magnificent ball striking performance.
Yeah, you know, I got to speak to someone in his camp before he teed off this morning, and they said to me that he is finally feeling extremely comfortable out here. He's not thinking about any swing thought. He's going out there, he's swinging so freely, and it certainly showed today. The way he drove the ball, the way he hit his irons, and even in his putting as well.
Yeah, and lives in Texas, went to school in Texas. His tour win on the PGA Tour was here in Houston, which is Texas, and now his first live win, Texas.
Honestly, it was just a matter of playing solid coming down the stretch. I think there was a switch there on 15 that I made birdie, he made bogey, and I just knew that I had to power in pretty much, and it was mine. The 18 I made bogey, but it worked. He played unbelievable, and he put pressure all the way to the end, and it was a good battle. I love playing here. Obviously, Texas treats me well. It's my adopted home state, so I'm just happy to get it done again in Houston.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Guest contributor today from Legal Sports Report to dive into the very latest on the news of sports betting and the business of it is Jim Gazzale. Joins us now to go over the latest on Michigan. We'll talk about Fanatics' footprint there, but let's start off with ESPN Bet, Jim. And we've had contributors all week long from Legal Sports Report talking about some of the numbers coming in from ESPN Bet. Simply put, it's showing that some moderate success, but also proving that you can't just throw a logo on a sports book and assume that you're going to cash in. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right, Craig. And I think the executives at Penn Interactive, Penn Entertainment are realizing that now, as we've seen over the last couple of months, just in various markets, the amount of handle that they're generating in relation to a lot of their other competitors. And coming out this week, we got to look at the revenue and handle figures in Pennsylvania for May. And what stuck out to me, and not surprisingly really, is that the amount of promotional dollars that ESPN Bet offered its Pennsylvania customers reached its lowest point since ESPN Bet took over for Barstool Sportsbook back in November. And it's not terribly surprising, Craig, as we see each year around this time in the calendar, those promos tend to drop off as we're out of football season. You've got just the NBA and NHL finals going on. Baseball is really the main thing on the menu. So those promo dollars do typically tend to fall off. $1 million was the promotional spend for ESPN Bet in Pennsylvania in May. And that's been a consistent downward trend since they launched ESPN Bet in November. February was $2.1 million, March 1.7, April 1.6, and like I said, May, just that $1 million. When they launched back in mid-November, it was nearly $15 million that they offered up. And Penn CEO Jay Snowden said that he was even surprised, talking about it on a national level, just at how much of a response there was to the new ESPN Bet offering. And they did not anticipate giving out as many promotional and sign-up bonuses as they did. The interesting thing to me, though, since that November total through May, $31.2 million in promotional spending for Penn in Pennsylvania. And in return, they've generated $30.1 million in revenue. So that promotional spend outweighing what they've made back in winnings off of players, obviously before being able to deduct that for tax purposes in Pennsylvania. But just an interesting nugget there to wrap up Pennsylvania in May, Craig.
All right. Thanks very much for that update. Let's move on now to Fanatics and talk about their foothold in Michigan. Looks like they are doing pretty well. And obviously they used to be PointsBet there, but since being bought out by Fanatics all over the country, they're starting to see some significant increases, which is good news because, again, there's really no football going on right now. So with these, other sports to bet, and especially in a state like Michigan, where the Tigers are middling and the Pistons did not have a good year, this is something that's probably a positive development for them.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty positive and quite interesting, too, to see just they've had a steady run over the last couple of months. Like you said, Craig, Fanatics took over that PointsBet license in Michigan towards the end of February. So let's just, say for argument's sake that they were operating as PointsBet in February. They had 2.3% of market-wide handle in February, and that's just increased and stayed steady since they made that switch in March. March, 4%, April, a little bit less, 3.6%, but in May, 4.1% of overall handle in Michigan for Fanatics. So, overall a positive trend to see that brand kind of elevate them a little bit in terms of generating a consistent amount of handle. They had a little bit more than $14 million in overall handle did Fanatics in Michigan for May, and they were able to generate $1.8 million in revenue. So obviously there are some other major players that we all know about in that market. And just like in most every other market, FanDuel and DraftKings seem to have a bit of a stranglehold on Michigan, though I do think with that brick and mortar casino in Detroit with the MGM brand, BetMGM does tend to do quite well in Michigan, all things considered. But certainly to your earlier point, Craig, Fanatics and the ability to take over for PointsBet and have a steady run over these last couple of months there in Michigan, I think is a positive sign as we get through the summer, and we'll see what they're able to do with a full start to college and NFL betting on the horizon for Fanatics.
Yeah, and just a couple of months away in terms of college football here, coming up in August. So I believe it's almost exactly 2 months to the date. All right, now let's get to Indiana and talk about the betting shares going around there. BetMGM, Bet365, Caesars, 3 predominant sports books there, all seeing moderate rises in their handle. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, and the increases aren't much, Craig, to be honest with you. But what was interesting to me was just that they were able to not only grow their share of handle within the market, but they were also able to increase their overall handle from April to May, which we don't typically see. Like we were talking about with the promo dollars in Pennsylvania tending to drop off this time of year because there's just not as much to bet on. Overall, betting tends to follow the same sort of path. So I was, pretty surprised to see that MGM, Bet365, and Caesars not only grew a little bit of market share in handle for May in Indiana, but just from a pure month-over-month, dollars to dollars, they were able to increase a tad bit there as well, which I thought was a pretty positive sign. And like we talked about with this Indiana market a couple of weeks ago, Craig, I think what we've really been waiting to see Indiana do is return to those 2022 handle levels. 23, they had the increased competition from Ohio to start the year, and then with Kentucky coming online towards the end of September last year. Just a couple of differing market factors created a little bit of volatility in Indiana, but they were able to kind of shrug that off and show some year-over-year growth to start the year. But within these last 2 months, we've seen those handle figures overall in the market really return to those 2022 levels, which I think is a pretty positive sign for them. So $361.6 million overall bet in May in Indiana, which is pretty significant when you look at those 2022 numbers, which were in that $280 to $290 million range. So overall, I think positive signs for Indiana, given the increased competition from Ohio and Kentucky that they faced last year, but returning to those levels 2 years ago, I think is a pretty positive sign for that market overall.
Yeah, sure. And look, no college basketball going on right now, of course, for those folks in Indiana. Indiana Pacers had a nice run. That's part of it as well. People interested in sports. But needless to say, we'll see how they do in football season as well. Jim, thanks again for weighing in and appreciate you coming on. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right. Thank you, Craig. All
right. Jim Gazzale from Legal Sports Report. All right. Coming up next, one of the legends of broadcasting and one of the very best in my generation of sports radio, Suzyn Waldman, is going to join us next. We'll weigh in on covering the Yankees next here on NewsWire. Don't go away.
Crazy how many teams had a chance to win. The Ripper GC went from 9 back to leading by 2 to near the cellar again late in the day. It was so volatile, counting 4 scores. It was pretty nuts, but the cliques have been cellar dwellers for basically 2.5 seasons, and they come out victorious today. That's awesome.
Be the summer of the cliques, definitely. So, like I said, there's definitely more to come from us.
It was a magnificent ball striking performance.
Yeah, I got to speak to someone in his camp before he teed off this morning, and they said to me that he is finally feeling extremely comfortable out here. He's not thinking about any swing thought. He's going out there, he's swinging so freely, and it certainly showed today. The way he drove the ball, the way he hit his irons, and even in his putting as well.
Yeah, and lives in Texas, went to school in Texas. His tour win on the PGA Tour was here in Houston, which is Texas, and now his first live win, Texas.
Honestly, it was just a matter of playing solid coming down the stretch. I think there was a switch there on 15 that I made birdie, he made bogey, and I just knew that I had to power in pretty much, and it was mine. The 18 I made bogey, but it worked. He played unbelievable, and he put pressure all the way to the end, and it was a good battle. I love playing here. Obviously, Texas treats me well. It's my adopted home state, so I'm just happy to get it done again in Houston.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Before we get back into some Major League Baseball, just a reminder this weekend for those of you checking us out here on SportsGrid, especially if tonight is the last night of the Stanley Cup Finals, you may be asking yourself, all right, well, the NBA is over, the NHL is over, there is no football, we know there is baseball, but what else is there? Very exciting event going on this weekend. Of course, it is the College World Series. So those of you who are watching all of our programming this weekend, you may want to tune in and, look, it's a very exciting sport. A handful of teams left, including my Gators, trying to capture the title in Omaha. So all this weekend, you can check that out. In addition, on Saturday and Sunday mornings, we cover fantasy sports here. I'll be hosting tomorrow morning with George Kurtz on Fantasy Sports Today, and then Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker have you covered on Sunday morning as well. So make sure you check those out right here on SportsGrid. Now, let's get back to some baseball and have a discussion as to the very latest as to what's going on. For those of you who, of course, missed it yesterday, the St. Louis Cardinals defeated the San Francisco Giants yesterday at, I think, one of the premier events for Major League Baseball during the season. Rickwood Field, it was just an amazing scene before the game. 6-5, the final for the Cardinals. And look, I mean, a game was played, but just so much happened before the game that it was really a momentous event. Now, of course, they honored Willie Mays, who passed away earlier this week at the age of 93. Also honored a lot of the former Negro League players as well. And we know that Major League Baseball has now incorporated all the stats for the Negro League players to the Major League Baseball stats as well. They are now just one. And to see a game played where Willie Mays played for the very first time in Birmingham, Alabama was great. And to have a game that actually ended with a 6-5 final was great as well. Now, as far as on the field is concerned, the St. Louis Cardinals are one of those teams right now that are fighting for the postseason, along with about 8 or 9 teams that are around 500 in the National League. There's a chance that we could get a team in a full 162-game season that's 500 or below in Major League Baseball. It's not something that you see very often, I think, if at all. Oliver Marmol, after the game, talked about the outcome of the game as far as winning and also the ceremonies that were held prior.
Guys have been playing well. We've been playing a lot of close ball games, and that's meaningful. It's going to pay off down the road when you're playing so many 1-2 run ball games. But we're starting to swing the bats a lot better. That's been the ups and downs of our season, has been the offense. Pitching has done a nice job to this point. The bullpen's been really good. But moving forward, I think our offense is in a much better spot and more consistent. You get Newbar and Contreras back here soon, and it definitely changes the game. Perspective. It was fun. Not that many, like the stadium's small, but it felt like the feeling of it was pretty cool. The pre-game ceremonies were incredible. During that time, I mean, I got emotional just standing there, knowing where you're standing and just the overall feel of the tribute to Willie Mays, and just like, man, the impact he had on people that he met, but also people that he never met. And that's when you know you've done it right, when you can have that type of influence. So the ceremonies were incredible. They really were. Yeah.
One of the trending topics, which I'll talk about coming up next on social media, was there were a lot of greats in the game yesterday, including Reggie Jackson at Rickwood Field. And, certainly I want to get into that because certainly some very emotional, outspoken comments for him that we'll get to a little bit later in the show. And I thought it was just a very well done event overall. And I hope Major League Baseball does this more often. I know they played in the Field of Dreams and now playing in Birmingham. It was a great scene last night on national television, too, on Fox as well. All right, one of the best in the business, legend in broadcasting, of course, on radio for the New York Yankees, Suzyn Waldman. So proud to have Suzyn back here on the show. We had her a couple of years ago talking some baseball, talking some Yankees. And Suzyn, it is great to have you on the show once again. We'll have Suzyn on here in just a minute once we get her ready. But first, let's hear from Aaron Judge on him returning last night and getting back onto the field after the injury.
Felt good. There's still some swelling, some soreness and stuff like that, especially on foul balls. But if you square it up, it feels pretty good.
Reassurance for you when you get a piece of that one and you're able to still drive the ball?
Yeah, definitely. Got a good pitch to hit, and I was trying to, do something out there, put the ball in play, and lucky was able to get over the fence. They're a good ball club. We saw that last year. They got some great young players. Play hard, play fast. Some great arms, starting pitching and bullpen, and it's fun competing against those guys. They bring it every single day, and even like today, came out swinging early on, and had some early success against Hill, and really couldn't answer back after that. But it's a fun team to compete against. Yeah, definitely. It's like you said, we got a half game on them, and it's going to be back and forth all the way till the end of September. That's for sure. And I think we're looking forward to having those battles back and forth. But You know, when it really ultimately comes down to us just taking care of ourselves. You know, we go out there and play the baseball that we're supposed to, you know, clean it up on defense a little bit, clean it up on certain things, and, you know, we'll take care of it and be where we want to be.
Now, naturally, right now, the story for the Yankees this season has not just been their hitting, but it has also been their pitching. Unfortunately, for the first time in Luis Gil's season, he finally felt it, courtesy of the Baltimore Orioles, as they put a 17 spot up on the Orioles yesterday. He talked about getting beat up for the first time, really, all season.
Luis, were you at all taken aback at how aggressive the Orioles were in this one?
Me sorprendió un poco entendiendo la alineación que te iba a enfrentar, de lo agresivos que fueron hoy en día, swingueando.
Entendiendo que es una alineación buena, sabe que tiene los Orioles, pero yo traté de ejecutar todo mi picheo. Todos somos humanos, hay días buenos, hay días malos, pero yo sé que habrá más días mejores. Antemano le pido una disculpa a mi equipo, tú sabes, pero habrá un día mejores y yo confío en mí y en mi equipo. Yo sé que nosotros vamos a dar lo mejor de ahora en adelante.
I mean, they have a really good lineup, you know, and there's good days and bad days out there, you know, and today definitely not my best. You know, I felt like I let the team down today, but you know, we definitely have more games ahead of us, you know, and I'm sure that we're going to be able to turn the page on this one and improve. You know, I believe in myself, and I definitely believe in my teammates.
All right, let's take a quick break here on NewsWire. When we come back, Suzyn Waldman joins us.
Crazy how many teams had a chance to win. The Ripper GC went from 9 back to leading by 2 to near the cellar again late in the day. It was so volatile, counting 4 scores. It was pretty nuts, but you know, the cliques have been cellar dwellers for basically 2.5 seasons, and they come out victorious today. That's awesome.
It'll be the summer of the cliques, definitely. So, like I said, there's definitely more to come from us.
It was a magnificent ball striking performance.
Yeah, you know, I got to speak to someone in his camp before he teed off this morning, and they said to me that he is finally feeling extremely comfortable out here. He's not thinking about any swing thought. He's going out there, he's swinging so freely, and it certainly showed today. The way he drove the ball, the way he hit his irons, and even in his putting as well.
Yeah, and lives in Texas, went to school in Texas. His tour win on the PGA Tour was here in Houston, which is Texas, and now his first live win, Texas.
Honestly, it was just a matter of playing solid coming down the stretch. I think there was a switch there on 15 that I made birdie, he made bogey, and I just knew that I had to power in pretty much, and it was mine. The 18 I made bogey, but it worked. He played unbelievable, and he put pressure all the way to the end, and it was a good battle. I love playing here. Obviously, Texas treats me well. It's my adopted home state, so I'm just happy to get it done again in Houston.
Welcome back to NewsWire. They don't get any better than my next guest, of course, legendary broadcaster for the New York Yankees. Suzyn Waldman joins us. Of course, the Yankees are having a really nice season, much better than last year, so it's a lot more fun to talk to Suzyn Waldman about that than it is a team that doesn't make the postseason potentially. Hey, Suzyn, great to have you here on the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. It hasn't been great the last couple of days, but yeah, it is. It's been a fun season. But you know what happens at the end of June? You know what's the saying? Bill Parcells always used to say to me, "Depth is great until you have to use it." And we've gotten to that point now with the bullpen and people. Depth is terrific till you have to use it every day.
Yeah, it is. And the good thing about the Yankees, they could just go out and get some other players if they need to. You know, before we get to the Yankees, I want to ask you about this transition in the booth. I mean, I don't know how you feel about change, but this is the first change that you've had in radio for so long with John Sterling retiring. You know, certainly, a long and storied career, your partner in the booth for such a long time. How has the transition been for you?
Well, because it's so many people and so many different times, you really don't know. And there's people wandering in and out, and I forget, and I'm not good with spreadsheets, so I never know who's sitting there until I walk in the booth. It's great. It's like an audition time for an awful lot of young broadcasters. And how do I like change? I'm an old get off my lawn person. I hate change. But, it's inevitable, and it's kind of fun. I mean, it's kind of fun to see, because there is a new style and there's a new kind of broadcaster thing, and I'm learning from them as they're learning from me. And by the way, I'm still there, so I could get to say, I'm sorry, you don't do that. That's what I do. And but it's really different. But you know what, Craig? To be honest, sometimes it's really good when there's change, because it forces you to grow, and it forces you to get out of your own little tunnel of how you look at things, because there's a whole other world out there. And if one guy sees it this way, maybe I should take a look at it and see what I can glean out of that too. So it's actually been a lot of fun for me. I really like it a lot.
Yeah, the only thing I have to stop you when they said you should be learning from them. I don't think so.
No. They're not going to learn about broadcast. I'm not going to learn about broadcasting from them. But I see that a different generation looks at the game. We don't see the same games all the time. And I look at it, I love information as well as everybody, but I see people. I don't see numbers. And that is something that, if you listen to younger broadcasters, that comes up a lot. And there's a lot of that there. And this is radio. So if I can teach a younger broadcaster that this isn't television, they can't see it. You've got to talk with your heart, and they have to listen to you and really respond to you. You can't information over the radio too much, your head will blow up. It'll explode. And everybody comes in and everybody is so energetic and they want to prove that they can do this. And it's great. And, after a while you calm down and you start watching the game and not, showing people what you know. But it's terrific. And I do have to remember that they are doing this in the biggest market in the world, and it's very tough for every single one of them. So I'm trying to be as gracious and helpful as I can.
Yep. Don't drown me in data. That's what I've heard for radio. I get that part. All right. I know we only have a couple of minutes here as we end the show, Suzyn, but the Yankees certainly have been a formidable force for the majority of the season. Soto's been a great acquisition. Judge has been fantastic, and some nice contributors as well. Heal's done a good job. Cole is back too.
Yeah, and I think that they just need some bullpen help, and the pitchers have to start going a little longer in games so you don't blow out the next group. And that you were kidding about that, but that is something that the Yankees can do, is that they can go out, they can replace their mistakes, and that is something that most teams cannot do. But everybody's looking for bullpen arms, and everybody's looking for another starter, so I'm not quite sure to work out. But the addition of Juan Soto has been eye-opening for this team in a lot of ways. You'll see walks have gone up and foul tips have gone up because they are looking at Soto, and because Soto bats right in front of Aaron Judge is having another monster season.
It has been great. Well, Suzyn, it is limited but great to catch up with you as always here on the show. Have a great rest of the season. Thanks so much, as always, for taking some time to join me and talking some Yankees and some great stuff on broadcasting, too. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, Greg. Anytime.
All right, Suzyn Waldman joining us here on NewsWire. All right, that will do it. What a fun edition we had of the show today. Thanks again to Suzyn for coming on. Also, Jim Gazzale from Legal Sports Report. Also, thanks to our friends, of course, over at Sporting News, Matt Lutovsky, our associate producer, Frank, my producer, Michael Cohen. I'm Craig Mish. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you back here for our next edition of NewsWire, Monday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll see what happens in the NHL. Enjoy the game tonight. See you Monday.